She didn't speak when he knocked the books from her arms. She didn't flinch when his friends laughed, loud and cruel. She just looked at him, calm, steady, and said, "You really shouldn't have done that." Jasmine Cole had transferred schools 4 times in 3 years. Every time she promised herself, stay quiet, stay invisible, survive. But Lincoln West High had Chad Morgan, the kind of guy who ruled the hallways like a king with a plastic crown. Entitled, popular, dangerous. He thought she was weak, but Jasmine wasn't here to play by his rules. And when the black Hellcat roared into the school parking lot, chrome glinting beneath the Arizona sun, everything shifted. Because the man inside that car, he wasn't just her ride home. He was Marcus Cross, and Chad Morgan had just picked a fight with the wrong girl. The Arizona sun hit hard that morning, casting sharp shadows across the pavement as Jasmine Cole stepped off the school bus. Her sneakers crunched lightly against the concrete, the sound swallowed up by the chatter and laughter of teenagers who had grown up knowing each other since grade school. She clutched her backpack tighter, heart steady, but eyes alert. The towering front of Lincoln West High loomed before her like the set of a movie she wasn't cast in. New school, new hallway codes, new dangers. But the rhythm? The rhythm was always the same. First, blend in. Second, observe. Third, don't get noticed. It wasn't fear that shaped these rules. It was strategy. Jasmine had learned early on that silence was power, especially in places where loud voices masked small minds. Inside, the school buzzed with teenage chaos. Lockers slammed shut. Sneakers squeaked on freshly waxed floors. The intercom crackled with morning announcements no one really listened to. Jasmine moved like a ghost, sharp eyes behind calm steps, gliding down the hallway with her class schedule in hand. She already knew the blueprint. She wasn't here to make friends. She was here to finish the year quietly. And then she saw him, leaning casually against a row of lockers, surrounded by a pack of boys in varsity jackets, was Chad Morgan. He didn't look like a villain at first glance. His smile was toothpaste commercial bright, his posture relaxed, and his hair too perfectly tousled to be natural. But Jasmine didn't need more than a second to read him. The subtle shifts in his friends' body language, the way they laughed too hard at his jokes, how they watched him out of the corners of their eyes, not just with admiration but fear, told her everything. Chad wasn't a leader. He was a tyrant, and Lincoln West High was his kingdom. She lowered her gaze, taking a longer path around his circle, but the universe, as usual, had a twisted sense of humor. As she passed, a shoulder slammed into hers. Not a bump, a deliberate hit. Her books flew from her arms, skidding across the floor. Pages fanned out like fallen cards. A wave of laughter rolled down the hallway. Jasmine didn't react. She dropped to one knee, slowly gathering her things. Her fingers moved calmly, one book at a time. From above, a voice dripped with condescension. "Well, well, looks like the new girl needs a little help." She didn't need to look up. She already knew the voice belonged to Chad. He stepped closer, his shadow stretching over her like a threat disguised as a joke. "You lost or just clumsy?" Still kneeling, Jasmine glanced up. His grin was effortless, but his eyes were sharp, testing her, like a predator prodding prey. She stood, dusted her jeans off, and stared directly at him. Her voice, quiet and controlled, slid out like silk. "You really shouldn't have done that." His friends chuckled behind him. Chad tilted his head. "Excuse me?" She didn't repeat herself. She didn't need to. Instead, she brushed past him without another word, not turning back, not even when she felt the burn of his stare boring into her spine. That day, Jasmine kept to the back of every classroom, answering only when called on, her handwriting neat, her voice even. During lunch, she found a seat by the window, alone as intended, watching the social chessboard unfold around her. Chad, of course, was in the center. He owned the cafeteria like a stage, his voice loud, his movements dramatic, like he needed the whole room to revolve around him. Jasmine watched, not out of fear, but out of necessity. Understanding the enemy was the first step. He looked her way once, just once, but long enough. He was curious, and curiosity, Jasmine knew, was dangerous in the hands of people like Chad Morgan. By day 2, the whispers had started. They followed Jasmine like a low hum in the background. Snippets of curiosity, cheap speculation, and shallow judgment passed between lockers and lunch tables. Most of it didn't bother her. She had lived through worse, much worse. But Chad Morgan wasn't done, and Jasmine knew he wouldn't be, not until he got the reaction he craved. The cafeteria was a noisy jungle, full of territorial seating and invisible boundaries. Jasmine navigated it like a seasoned traveler, tray in hand, eyes scanning for a safe corner. As she passed the popular table, Chad's throne room, someone extended a leg, a deliberate tripwire. Her tray jolted in her hands. The milk carton tipped, but she steadied everything just in time. Still, the act was obvious. The laughter that followed was louder than necessary. Chad leaned back in his seat, arms crossed, grin wide. "Oops, sorry, didn't see you there." Jasmine didn't even glance at him. Instead, she turned slightly toward the table and said, her voice smooth, "Didn't realize cavemen made it to senior year." A ripple of laughter broke out, not from his friends, but from bystanders. Real laughter. That brief moment, 5 seconds of reversed power, shifted something. Chad's smile twitched, his eyes narrowed. Jasmine didn't wait for the fallout. She walked calmly to her table and began to eat. No dramatics, no fear, just presence. And that, more than any insult, unraveled him a little further. The next blow came after last period, her locker. Jasmine rounded the corner to find it wide open. Books dumped carelessly onto the floor. Marker scribbles scrawled across the door like graffiti left by cowards. Students hovered nearby, pretending not to watch, eyes darting like moths to a flame. No one stepped in. No one said a word. Jasmine bent down and began to stack her books. Slowly, silently, one by one. She could feel him watching. Not up close. No, that wasn't his style. He wanted to see her crack from a distance, wanted to feel in control of the damage. But she didn't give him that. Not a glance, not a word, not even a sigh. She closed her locker and walked away. And somewhere in the hallway, Chad Morgan felt something unfamiliar creep up his spine. Uncertainty. That night, Jasmine sat at the kitchen table, stirring the ice in her glass as Marcus Cross leaned against the counter. The house smelled like sandalwood and old vinyl. Outside, the phoenix sky melted into orange and violet as dusk wrapped around the neighborhood. "They trashed my locker today," she said quietly. Marcus looked up, his dark eyes unreadable. "That their best move?" Jasmine gave a half smile. "So far." He nodded slowly. "What's yours?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stared into her drink like it held the blueprint to something bigger. Then she looked up. "I'm going to let him dig his own grave." Marcus smirked. "Atta girl." By the time Friday rolled around, the atmosphere at Lincoln West was charged. Something had shifted, subtle but powerful. Chad's attacks had become louder, more desperate. And Jasmine? She remained unbothered, but Chad couldn't stand silence. He needed validation. He needed control. So he upped the ante. Lunchtime again. This time Chad stood as Jasmine passed. The whole cafeteria seemed to inhale collectively as he called out, "Still upset about your little locker makeover?" Jasmine paused for just a second. Not enough to confirm his power. Just long enough to let the weight of her silence settle. She turned, stared at him, and said, "It's funny how you keep talking about it. Like you're proud." He scoffed. "What, you want me to apologize?" She shook her head. "No. I want you to keep going." Chad blinked. "What?" Jasmine leaned slightly, voice low but clear. "Because the more you do, the more people start asking, 'What are you so afraid of?'" The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was damning. Chad's friends looked away. A few students at nearby tables whispered, smirking behind their hands. And for the first time, Jasmine saw it in his eyes. That flicker of confusion, that tremor of doubt. He didn't understand why his usual games weren't working. She walked away. Again. Always walking away. But this time, the cafeteria didn't laugh with him. It watched him, measured him, and Chad Morgan was beginning to lose the room. That night, Jasmine texted Marcus just 4 words. "It's starting to work." His reply came almost instantly. "Keep your cool. He'll implode." And deep inside, Jasmine knew this wasn't about winning a battle. It was about letting the other side expose itself completely. The trick wasn't in striking back. It was in letting the enemy unravel, one arrogant misstep at a time. The afternoon heat shimmered over the blacktop as Jasmine walked toward the school's front lot, her backpack hanging loosely off one shoulder. It had been a long week of subtle wars, of stares, whispers, and small explosions. No one else seemed brave enough to stop. But Jasmine wasn't looking for a savior. She was waiting for the right moment. Behind her, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed. Not hurried, intentional. She didn't have to turn around. "Hey, new girl!" Chad's voice rang out like a challenge dressed as charm. She stopped, turned slowly. He stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, friends loitering behind him like shadows waiting for permission to act. His signature smirk was plastered across his face, but his eyes weren't smiling. Jasmine exhaled, calm as ever. "What do you want, Chad?" He stepped forward. "You've got an attitude problem, you know that?" She tilted her head. "No, I've got a Chad problem." The boys behind him chuckled nervously. Even they weren't sure if it was funny or dangerous. Chad took another step. He towered over her now, trying to use his height like a threat. "You think you're better than me?" And this time she laughed. Not loudly, not mockingly, just a soft, amused exhale. A sound that stripped away his power more effectively than any insult. "I think," she said slowly, "you should walk away." Chad blinked. It wasn't fear he saw in her eyes. It was something worse. Confidence. Not the kind you fake. The kind that comes from knowing something no one else does. Jasmine leaned in ever so slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because you have no idea who I am." He laughed, loud, forced. "Right. And who are you supposed to be?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her pocket and tapped her phone. One single motion. A moment later, the deep, guttural roar of an engine shattered the silence. Heads turned, and then it rolled in. A black Dodge Hellcat Charger, low to the ground, aggressive and sleek, like a predator's on wheels. The late Arizona sun danced off its hood, chrome details catching the light with every inch it moved. It came to a perfect stop at the curb. The driver's window slid down in slow motion. And there he was, Marcus Cross. The man didn't need an introduction. His face had graced 100 action movie posters. His voice had narrated gritty documentaries and iconic one-liners. His presence filled the parking lot like smoke in a closed room, quiet, undeniable, dangerous. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Because every single person watching, including Chad, knew the man in the driver's seat wasn't just famous. He was respected. He was feared. He was the kind of man you don't test twice. Jasmine turned to Chad, smiling for the first time all day. A smile full of knowing. Still think I'm just the new girl? Chad opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His eyes flicked between Jasmine and Marcus, the blood draining from his face. Jasmine took a step back, turned toward the car, and opened the passenger door. Marcus finally spoke, his voice low and calm, but every syllable hit like steel. "Get in, kid." Jasmine obeyed without hesitation. She didn't look back. The car door slammed shut. The Charger growled as it pulled away from the curb, and behind them, a sea of stunned silence. No one spoke, no one laughed. Even Chad's friends didn't know what to say. Chad stood alone, jaw clenched, fists tight, trying to piece together what had just happened. Because for the first time, maybe in his entire life, he wasn't the one holding the spotlight. Inside the car, the world passed by in golden streaks as the sun dipped lower on the Phoenix skyline. Jasmine sat in the passenger seat, quiet for a moment, letting the tension finally slip from her shoulders. Marcus didn't glance at her. He just drove. "You okay?" he asked, voice steady. Jasmine nodded. "Yeah." Then after a pause, she smirked. That was kind of dramatic, wasn't it? A smile tugged at the corner of Marcus's mouth. A little. I didn't mean for him to find out like that. Marcus shrugged. "What? You wanted to let some punk keep running his mouth?" "I was just waiting," she replied, resting her head back against the seat. "For the right moment," he nodded. "You sound like me at your age." She laughed under her breath. "That's not comforting," he chuckled. "Smartass." They drove in silence for a moment, the kind that wasn't empty, but full. Full of meaning, of unspoken understanding, of pride. But Jasmine knew this wasn't the end. She had rattled Chad Morgan's ego. And men like him, they didn't take that well. The next morning, Lincoln West High felt different. Jasmine could sense it the moment she stepped through the front doors. The halls were alive with whispers. Soft, buzzing, relentless. Not about her this time. About Chad. What had once been a school ruled by his laugh, his strut, his cocky charm, now pulsed with questions. What was Marcus Cross doing picking up her? Was that really her father? What did Chad do to get on their radar? No one said it out loud, but the king had stumbled, and Jasmine could smell the fear rising from the cracks in his armor. She passed his group near the lockers. His boys still leaned around him, but their postures were different. Less confident, less synchronized. And Chad? He just stared. No smirk, no taunt, just a quiet, fixed stare, like a man unsure if the ground beneath him still belonged to him. Jasmine met his gaze, held it, just long enough to say, "I'm not afraid of you." Then she walked on, and Chad? He didn't follow. By lunch, the shift had become undeniable. The cafeteria, once his stage, had begun to hum with a different energy. Students whispered, but they weren't laughing with him. They were watching him, evaluating him. Power doesn't disappear all at once. It leaks, and Chad's was draining fast. Jasmine sat in her usual corner. Alone, yes, but not invisible anymore. She didn't look up when she heard the familiar clomp of Chad's sneakers behind her. He stopped a few feet away and raised his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "You still crying about your little locker, princess?" A pause. Forks froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. And Jasmine? She didn't flinch. She simply set down her juice box, turned her head slightly, and said, "It's funny how you keep talking about me, like you're not the one who almost pissed himself when my dad showed up." The cafeteria exploded. Laughter, gasps, even a few people standing just to get a better look. But Jasmine didn't bask in it. She didn't even smile. She went right back to eating her salad, like the king had never spoken. And that broke him more than any insult. Chad stormed out of the cafeteria 5 minutes later. His friends followed, confused and uncomfortable, whispering behind his back. For the first time, he was the one being watched, judged, doubted. The throne was slipping. That afternoon, Jasmine found her locker untouched. But that didn't mean the war was over. It meant Chad was shifting strategy. The next strike came quietly. She received an anonymous message during her last class. Just a screenshot. One of his friends, Ryan, bragging in a group chat about what they were planning next. Maybe we ruin her stuff again, or post something. I've got a pic of her from this morning. She's not as tough as she looks. Jasmine stared at the screen, unmoved. She didn't need to reply. She didn't need to expose them. Yet. Instead, she forwarded the message to one person. Marcus. His reply came in a single word. Patience. That night, she sat at the dining table again, fingers drumming a rhythm on the wood. Marcus leaned back in the kitchen chair, sipping his tea. They're escalating, she said. He raised an eyebrow. Scared people always do. I think they're trying to push me into a corner, make me strike back. Marcus smirked. They want you to swing first. That way they can say you're just like them. She nodded. But if I don't respond at all? Marcus's eyes met hers, intense, unwavering. Then they burn themselves down, she exhaled. So I wait? You wait, he said. But you stay ready. The next day brought another surprise. Jasmine didn't even make it to first period before students began nudging each other in the hallways, pointing toward Chad's locker. When she finally turned the corner, she understood why. It had been trashed, not just vandalized, exposed. Printed screenshots had been taped across the metal surface. Dozens of them. Chats, DMs, comments, all from Chad. Some were petty and mean, others were cruel. And a few were worse. Racist remarks, sexist jokes, humiliating insults about his own friends, teachers, students he pretended to like. The dates were recent, the tone unmistakable. He had torched his own reputation one message at a time. And now, it was all right there for everyone to see. Jasmine stood at the edge of the crowd, arms folded. She didn't move, didn't gloat, didn't blink. She didn't need to say a word. Because the silence around Chad's locker said enough. He appeared minutes later, shoving through the students. His eyes scanned the papers, then the crowd, then her. And for the first time since they'd met, he looked terrified. Chad stood frozen in front of his locker. The pages fluttered slightly from the hallway vents, as if they were whispering secrets he could no longer contain. His hands trembled as he ripped one paper down, then another, each one revealing more than it concealed. The crowd had already judged him. There was no defending the things he'd written, no coming back from this. Jasmine didn't move. She just watched. Arms crossed, back straight, eyes calm. For once she was the one in control of the silence. And Chad, he was drowning in it. You did this, he growled, turning toward her. His voice was low, strained, not angry, not yet, just desperate. Jasmine blinked slowly. Did I? You think you're so smart, huh? His voice cracked slightly. You think this makes you better than me? She took one step forward. No, Chad, she said, steady as glass. This just makes you exactly who you are. The only difference is, now everyone else sees it too. His jaw clenched. There was a fire behind his eyes. A flicker of the boy who used to rule this school. The one who thought power came from fear. But that fire was dying. Fast. For a second, Jasmine thought he might hit her. His fists were balled, his breath shallow. But he didn't, because he knew somewhere deep down that if he did, he would lose everything. So instead he turned and stormed off, shoving through the crowd. No one followed him, not his friends, not the teachers, not even the ones who used to cheer when he walked into a room. The king had no kingdom left. After school, Jasmine walked toward the front steps under a wide amber sky. The heat had faded into a dry breeze. Her steps were slow but steady. Her body relaxed, but her mind still alert. And there he was, Marcus Cross, leaning against the Hellcat, arms crossed, sunglasses tucked into his shirt. He didn't wave, didn't ask questions. He just waited. She slid into the passenger seat and exhaled, not from exhaustion, but relief. "It's done," she said quietly. Marcus looked over. "He finally cracked?" She nodded. "Publicly?" Marcus smirked. "Didn't even have to swing." "Didn't need to." He turned the key. The engine rumbled to life. They didn't speak again until they were halfway home. "So what now?" he asked. Jasmine looked out the window. The sun spilled across the desert landscape like molten gold. "Now," she said, "I get to enjoy high school." Marcus laughed. "That's my girl." But that night, as the quiet settled into their house, and the smell of Marcus's leather jacket lingered near the door, Jasmine sat at the kitchen table, drumming her fingers again. Marcus joined her, setting down a mug of chamomile tea. "Something still on your mind?" he asked. Jasmine hesitated. "He's not done," she said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I mean, I beat him. Everyone saw it, but that doesn't mean he's just going to disappear." He studied her for a long moment. "You want to finish it?" he asked. She frowned. "What do you mean?" "You could end this for good," he said. "Embarrass him one more time, humiliate him, take back everything." Jasmine stared down at the table, then shook her head. "No," she said softly. "I want him to end it." Monday came, and for once, no one was watching her. All eyes were on Chad Morgan. He still showed up, still walked the halls like he belonged there. But something was different. His friends? Scattered, quiet. The girls who used to flirt with him in class pretended not to notice him. Even the teachers looked at him differently now. Every step he took, every door he opened, every joke he tried to tell felt hollow. He wasn't feared anymore. He was avoided, and that, Jasmine knew, was worse. They crossed paths one final time, after last period. He was leaning against his car. No friends, no noise, just him, waiting. She slowed as she approached, didn't say anything at first. He looked up. "I just don't get it," he muttered. "Why don't you fight back?" Jasmine paused, then folded her arms. "Because I don't need to." Chad scoffed. "That's not how it works. People like me push. People like you push back, or get run over." Jasmine stepped closer. "Or," she said quietly, "people like me wait, let you push, let you mess up. Let everyone see how weak you really are. And when you're standing in the middle of the wreckage, we don't have to do anything." She leaned in, eyes locked on his. "You've already destroyed yourself." Chad stared at her for a long, long moment, and then he said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. It had been 3 days since the fall of Chad Morgan. 3 days since the papers were ripped off his locker. Since the whispers turned into rumors, and rumors into facts. Since his reign of intimidation crumbled under the weight of his own words. Jasmine walked through the halls of Lincoln West like she belonged, not loudly, not boastfully, but fully present. The same kids who had once whispered about the new girl now nodded as she passed. Some smiled. A few even stopped to say hello. But she didn't need their approval. She hadn't done this for them. In her English class, her teacher mentioned character arcs and moral reversal, like they were just pieces of literature. Jasmine smiled quietly to herself. She'd lived one. And Chad? He was still there, still walking the halls. But he wasn't the same. He sat in the back now, spoke less, laughed less. People gave him space, but not out of respect, out of discomfort. It wasn't hatred that replaced his popularity. It was indifference. He was no longer feared. He was forgettable. And that, Jasmine knew, was the most brutal punishment of all. That afternoon, the air outside was lighter, cooler somehow, like the world had exhaled after weeks of tension. Marcus waited by the Hellcat, arms crossed as usual, a faint grin tugging at his lips. She climbed in and buckled up. "How's school?" he asked, voice calm. Jasmine tilted her head thoughtfully. "Quiet." He smirked. "Your favorite kind." She laughed under her breath. "Not always. But this kind of quiet? Yeah, I earned it." They drove in silence for a few blocks, the engine humming low beneath their feet. Then Marcus asked, "So, did it end the way you wanted?" Jasmine considered it. "No," she said. "It ended better." Back home, they sat at the kitchen counter. The sun had dipped below the skyline, and the soft orange light filtered through the blinds. Marcus sipped his tea. Jasmine tapped her fingers gently on the ceramic mug in front of her. "He asked me why I didn't fight back," she said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "And what did you say?" "I told him I didn't need to." He nodded, not surprised. "Most people don't understand that," he said. "They think power is loud, fists, shouting, retaliation." Jasmine looked over. "But real power is what?" Marcus smiled slowly. "Stillness." Later that night, Jasmine sat by her bedroom window, legs tucked beneath her, watching the city flicker in the distance. She thought about every version of herself she'd played to survive in the last 3 years. Quiet girl, transfer girl, invisible girl. But now, she didn't feel invisible anymore. Not because people saw her, but because she saw herself clearly, fully, without apology. She hadn't needed revenge, or a dramatic speech, or a viral moment. She'd needed patience. She'd needed clarity. She'd needed to believe that the truth always reveals itself, eventually. And it had. At school the next morning, she didn't expect attention. She got it anyway. Someone had drawn a chalk mural on the sidewalk near the entrance. It wasn't flashy, just a simple outline of a crown cracked down the middle, with a single phrase written underneath. "Silence wins." No one claimed it. No one had to. Jasmine smiled. For the first time in a long time, she felt free. In the end, Jasmine Cole didn't raise her voice. She didn't throw a punch. She didn't need to. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge is no revenge at all. Just truth, exposed at the right moment, in front of the right people. Chad Morgan thought strength meant control. He thought fear was the same as respect. He thought the quiet ones were weak. He was wrong. This story wasn't about a celebrity father. It wasn't even about a bully falling from grace. It was about a girl who refused to give her power away, who waited, watched, and let her silence speak louder than anything Chad could scream. And maybe, just maybe, that's what real strength looks like. Now it's your turn. Have you ever faced someone like Chad Morgan? Do you believe silence can be stronger than fighting back? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, even just a little, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more powerful stories just like this one. We're just getting started. And trust us, the quiet ones always have the last word.